Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's not common that we get to talk to an old friend, someone that we kind of watch and be so and so proud of. So today's special guest is Jesse Rothstein, CEO and co-founder of ExtraHop, and who also is in the West Coast. Good morning, Jesse.
Good morning, Denny.
Good seeing you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you must be really busy these days, growing company like crazy.
You know, I tend to keep myself busy. How are you doing today?
Good, good. And then, of course, Tim.
Hello, everybody.
Tim.
Yep.
So you introduced Jesse to us, and you wrote an article a few years back, actually, when you first heard of Jesse. So maybe you should give an introduction to our audience, who Jesse is and why you think so highly of him.
Well, today's trends are to put people that are nothing but MBAs in charge of companies or accountants, and you get to work with someone that is knowledgeable, nice, and is a technologist. And that's when I first met Jesse, we hit it off. We don't get to talk as much as we like to, but he's so busy. I mean, it's almost impossible to catch him somewhere unless you're just, unless it's 6 o'clock on the East Coast or West Coast, and he's in his office still working.
So he's smart, he's technical, and he's good looking, and he's successful. So how can you beat that?
You can't. And what he's created with his co-founder Raja is a pretty transformational type technology. He came from a background of big IP kind of world, and he kind of looked forward in the industry. And when he created the product, he didn't look at just creating a moneymaker. He looked at solving problems for different tiers of users, because I don't think we've ever had two users that were identical. Okay, and so what they've done is create a very cool technology, very powerful, solution based. And it's award-winning. It's people love it, and also I think part of their success is that the two co-founders are just very nice people. They're sincere, and they're just nice people, and that's so rare in our industry today, to have a CEO or a business development person or someone who's built the business be someone you can talk to just like your best friend. So it's pretty easy to like Jesse. And it's
You're making me blush.
no, I mean, I'm serious, because you know me well enough, Jesse. I talk to a lot of people, and I'm very blunt. Some people you like dealing with, and other people it almost makes you sick to even want to talk to them, And so you and Raja have been just great people. And not just me. I've heard this from people in the industry.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, Denny. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be on the show today. I really am.
We're glad we convinced you.
Yeah. Why don't we start with who you are? I mean, there are two ways to do that. One is to start with your product, and then the other one is to start with a better product, which is yourself. So why don't we start with who you are and introduce yourself to our audience, and what you've done before starting ExtraHop, and then what you've done since starting ExtraHop, and then we'll end the show with your product.
Sure, happy to. So my name is Jesse Rothstein. I am co-founder and CEO of ExtraHop Networks. Prior to starting ExtraHop, and I started the company with my co-founder Raja back in 2007, and we did 2 years of R&D before bringing any product to market, in about early 2009. But prior to founding ExtraHop, I was the senior architect and really one of the senior architect of F5 at F5 Networks for the Big IP product line and the TMOS platform. And Raja and I are considered the co-inventors of TMOS. So, I think most of the people on your program are probably familiar with F5 and Big IP. F5 was an early player in load balancers back then. And back then, load balancers were fairly, I'm going to call them fairly simple devices, not very intelligent, very packet-oriented. Back in those days, early 2000s, load balancers would generally buffer up some packets, make a load balancing decision, and then apply smart network address translation in order to direct those packets to a particular server, hopefully one with the least amount of load, thus the term load balancer. Sometimes certain features like session persistence were very important. But the point is those systems were very simple. So what my team did over at F5, and of course these things are always a team effort, is we really brought a lot of application awareness to what was the load balancer. You know, turn these things into the high-speed, transparent, full proxies that they are today. You know, with the ability to slice and dice transactions, you know, deal them out to multiple servers, put them back together again, do a lot of complicated context switching and content transformations. And that's what really transformed the load balancing category into modern application delivery controllers. It was a great thing to be a part of. F5, I think that effort really catapulted F5 into the position of market leadership that they still enjoy today. I think F5 is one of the few companies that went head-to-head with Cisco in anything having to do with networking and really won their category. I can think of a very short list of companies that did that. So a spectacular thing to be a part of. But by way of transition, I was also exposed to a lot of the challenges associated with very complicated enterprise, you know, IT operations. To some degree, and this is a little tongue-in-cheek, I probably blame myself for a few of those challenges because as we introduced more complexity and more intelligence into the infrastructure, you know, smart infrastructure devices, what that meant is you know, more moving parts, more things that can fail, you know, more layers, more tiers. So to some degree, I was an enabler, and I've spent the last, you know, the last 8 years of my life really building a solution for those problems around scale, complexity, and dynamism, and that's what we do at ExtraHop. So I feel like I've been talking for a little while, but Danny, would you like me to talk about ExtraHop a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, I love the entrepreneur story. Being an entrepreneur myself, there's nothing better than fixing your own problem, and usually that's how serial entrepreneur works, right? Is that they solve one problem to create more, and then they just keep at it.
You know, in my opinion, it's got to be a problem you understand, and I think there are different classes of entrepreneur. You know, Tim hinted to this earlier. I really consider myself a product-oriented entrepreneur. I love building products and bringing them to market. I love solving problems. That's what drives me. That's what drives my co-founder, and that's really what ExtraHop is all about. So in terms of what we've built at ExtraHop, you know, Tim wrote that article back in December of 2008. I think he called it "Two IT Guys in a Garage." A little correction: we did not actually have a garage; we had a loft. So, and the loft, you know, we didn't even have air conditioning in those days, and we were writing code, and that's what we brought our early ExtraHop and, you know, first employees on to do as well. Kind of a funny story. We didn't really have an enterprise quality computer network to analyze, so we offered free Wi-Fi to some of the surrounding offices, and then we ended up analyzing a lot of the Wi-Fi traffic in order to get kind of the early traffic profiles. So you can probably tell from my description that what ExtraHop does is we look at network traffic, but we do it in a way that I don't think has ever really been done before, or at least we push the envelope very, very far. Mm-hmm. We call ourselves a platform for wire data analytics. You know, what does that mean? For us, wire data is everything that's on the wire. You know,
so when did you actually start the company? You know, when you started in the loft.
Sure. So we started the company in the very beginning of 2007, and then we spent about 2 years of pure R&D and started selling the product in the very beginning of 2009. And we've been selling the product, you know, you can do the math, for about, you know, 6.5 years since then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I thought the company in the loft in the garage, just, I guess it was a more romantic image because, you know, you were taking whatever you had is what I was trying to get to, and just.
No, I was teasing. The garage metaphor holds true. You know, it was two guys. We were writing code. We had very minimal equipment. But what we've developed is a platform, as I said, for wire data analytics. That's what we call all of the information on the wire, on the network, from the packets to individual transactions. And I think one of the things that your audience in particular, your viewers, your readers, that they particularly understand is the value of wire data. They understand how much information is traversing the network, and for the most part, that we don't do anything with it. Most of it falls on the floor. Sometimes you take a packet trace. Sometimes you'll get some basic flow level information from a net flow collector. You'll count bytes. You'll count packets. These techniques have been around for 30+ years. I would say that barely scratches the surface of what's available in the wire data. So for your audience, I think you can think of us as a next generation network monitoring tool. One thing that I would challenge people to think about, especially in enterprise IT, is as we move toward next generation tools, everything becomes a data problem. It's all big data. I'll circle back to that in a second. But almost every team has some great next generation tools except the network team. If you're in security, you can use FireEye or Palo Alto. If you're a sysadmin, you can use Splunk. If you're an application developer, you can use New Relic or AppDynamics. What do the network guys have? What's their next generation go-to tool?
Yeah. Well, why don't we go ahead and jump ahead a bit? And I know you have your product sitting right next to you. Why don't we kind of show that to our audience, and so they get a sense of what they could buy from you, and where they would install it in the network, and then ultimately what that box or software that you offer what problem does it solve? Sure.
So this is a little bit of a form factor. I have to turn the camera here. This is an ExtraHop appliance sitting next to me right here, and this is actually our present high-end flagship appliance. This is the ExtraHop 9100. So you can I think infer from what I'm showing you that we sell physical appliances, but we also sell a line of virtual appliances. So physical or virtual appliances that analyze in real time everything that's on the wire. This ExtraHop 9100 I brought because it's a recent announcement we made. It supports 40 gigabits of analysis. Can handle well over 1 million transactions per second, like HTTP transactions. And these are benchmark transactions in our lab, but think about that for a second. 1 million per second, and many millions of packets per second. So notice when I describe performance characteristics, I always like to provide multiple, multiple axes and dimensions of the performance curve. I think a lot of vendors only talk about throughput, but that's really only one dimension of performance. You got to look at throughput. You got to look at transaction rate. You got to look at packet rate. You need to at least look at those different performance characteristics to understand the actual performance of a system. So the ability to do 40 gigabits of analysis for any, I think most of us realize that you're not going to get 40 gigabits for min-sized frames. Even 40 gigabit links can't do that. But 40 gigabits for real-world traffic is something that we can absolutely do, a reasonable traffic mix. And that is, as far as I know, industry leading. I have not seen any other product in the industry that can even approach our level of performance on the high end, in such a form factor. I mean,
so
maybe
does your appliance sit in the network? Is it a node in the network, or does it sit off the network and just getting copies of the traffic?
Great question. It is off the network. We just get copies of traffic. Since we've got Tim here on the call, I'm going to say that I always recommend that people tap the traffic using an optical tap, if possible. We definitely have the occasional enterprise that will insist on using a span or a VACL. That being said, with these high-end appliances, they're almost always tapped, and they usually use some sort of aggregation tap as well, and we partner with all the major ag tap vendors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, Denny, I hinted to this earlier, but let me clarify that, for the physical appliances, we sell them in 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. And as you can note, the large, the EH9100, that goes very, very fast, and there's a premium price point for that. But the small appliances, that's our 6000 and 6100. That does 10 gigabits of analysis and a very reasonable price point. And then we have virtual appliances as well. So an ExtraHop virtual appliance is a subscription-based offering and costs less than $10,000 a year.
Yeah. So I just pop up just for the just give the audience a a sense of what we're talking about, I just pop up your web page
Yep.
with the different size of appliance, going from the EH90-100 to the 60-100 to the 2000. Is that what we're talking about, Jesse?
It is. So the 1000V and 2000V are virtual appliances.
Mm-hmm.
And then for your audience as well, I'm going to make an offer. We have an ExtraHop Discovery Edition, which is a virtual appliance. You can run it on your laptop. You can run it on ESXi, so that's VMware's hypervisor. You can actually run it on something like VMware Fusion, so that's a Type 2 hypervisor. You can run it on Hyper-V. And that is a free virtual appliance that we offer to users in order to get exposed to our technology. Now, one caveat on that, it is a simplified offering. It doesn't have the full features of our enterprise offering, but it's still extremely powerful, and I think delivers a ton of value.
Now, Jesse,
so again, just to give our audience a sense of where you fit in their life. So now we understand that where it fits physically, but I noticed that your tagline is CIT run, which I think is very, very simple and clear. I love it when people can pick the right tagline. But kind of help with audience. Where exactly, at what level are you actually seeing the IT run?
That's a great question, Denny. Yeah, that's been our tagline for a long time, CIT run.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I mentioned earlier, we look at wire data. So we take a copy of the network traffic, we put everything back together again, and in real time, our goal is to extract intelligence about what's going on the wire. The ExtraHop system really looks at all of the tiers of an application delivery chain. So this typically runs in a data center or in the public cloud, typically runs near the servers. We can look at everything from the client devices to the network transport, web front end, middleware, message queues, databases, and back-end storage. Now, in terms of the level of analysis that we're doing, one of the things that drives me kind of nuts is a lot of network monitoring vendors talk about analyzing traffic, but they really only go to L4. They're doing flow-based analysis. Very often, they're doing some basic traffic analysis where you can understand directionality. I see some bytes move this way, I see some bytes move that way, so it's probably a transaction. But we do full L2 to L7 analysis. So L7 analysis, layer 7, I think everybody's fairly familiar with the OSI model. This is application layer analysis. What this means is that we understand application level protocols. We understand all the major protocols for every major enterprise database, from SQL Server all the way to the DB2 or Informix. We understand protocols for network-based storage, anything that runs on Ethernet, really. We understand protocols for NoSQL databases like MongoDB or Memcache. We actually are just in the process of introducing VoIP analysis, so a whole suite of VoIP protocols, a wide range of protocols that we understand all in real time and extract insights and value about that. And I'm doing a little hand waving there, and I'm happy to take a deeper dive to describe the type of.
No, I just want you to know that I really enjoy your website, because some people don't always understand the purpose of having a website. The purpose of the website is really to help the salesman, so that they can explain to the customer, what problem does the product solve. So, putting my salesman hat, I go to your site that's called Use Cases, and I think what you just talked about, it kind of encompasses all that, doesn't it?
I think it does. I mean, you have some of my favorite examples there. You have Citrix ICA latency. We are a Citrix partner, and we actually have built, I think, one of the world's best Citrix analysis modules. If you're familiar with Citrix ICA and HDX, those are the protocols that are used for VDI and thin clients. And the thing about VDI is it's a real challenge for the IT departments. VDI actually takes whatever application performance exists on the back end and literally turns it into a bit stream of pixels and clicks, and completely opaque. Now, if you Google for Citrix performance monitoring, you'll find tons and tons of hits, but these all involve running some sort of agent on your Citrix servers, or really just mining the Citrix performance metrics that Citrix already makes available. What we've done is, from a wire data perspective, we understand the ICA protocol. So there's a lot of information that we can mine there. We can see the individual, the users that connect to it. We can actually break open the virtual channels, so we can see, are people watching a lot of video? Are they accessing remote USB devices, which can have security implications when you think about this in terms of data leakage. We can certainly see if application launches are slow, so give you a proactive alert if application launches or user login times get slow. One of my favorite examples for that use case comes from a healthcare organization, a large children's hospital, and there's a lot of VDI and thin clients in healthcare because of two reasons, really: mobility and HIPAA. HIPAA compliance. You want to keep all of your data private. You want to keep it locked down in the data center. But also mobility. You want access to your data from anywhere, whether it's an iPad or a workstation in the exam room or anywhere. So VDI is used a great deal in healthcare. And at this particular children's hospital, they had a situation where a very sophisticated VDI infrastructure, but sometimes their 12-second login time would spike to minutes, like over 5 minutes. And I'm told that healthcare professionals, doctors and such, aren't the most patient bunch, so they would call in and complain rather vociferously. And what would happen is the IT guys, they would grab their packet sniffer and run and plug it in and take a packet capture, and maybe it wasn't physical, but they'd kick off a packet capture, and by the time they did that, it was gone. They searched for this for 8 months. They literally called it the ghost in the machine. So we did a proof of concept with them. They were evaluating the ExtraHop technology, and this event happened again. They said, let's find it in ExtraHop. So a few things then occurred. First, ExtraHop was able to corroborate these slow login times that users complained about. We could see it, we could chart it, we could alert them on it. And then second, we were able to really drill down to the particular user that was causing this, because we could actually, at the time that these slow logins occurred, we could correlate it to a big spike on their NAS. And that spike actually correlated to a Citrix roaming profile. So what was happening here is a user was logging in, and then about 5 gigabytes of photographs that he had stored on his desktop were transferred across the wire, and that would basically lock up the NAS and prevent anybody from logging in any sort of timely manner. So once they knew what the problem was, and once they could find the individual user who was causing it, it was very easy to address. But this is something where they told us that they never could have found it without ExtraHop, and they certainly couldn't have found it by trying to use a packet sniffer and look one flow at a time through underneath the microscope.
Yeah. So and I would invite our audience to go visit the ExtraHop website and just kind of explore on their own the different industries that ExtraHop serve, and the one that Jesse mentioned, healthcare, is right on the top with a lot of feedback from the users. Jesse, I wonder if we could change the subject just a bit, because we're kind of coming up on the half-hour mark, and keep in mind that we can't possibly do everything we wanted to do in one session. And so today is really, to me, it's a revisit of ExtraHop, after a few years, but at the same time, it's really maybe a first-time introduction to our audience, and I think it's a real pleasure, honor to have you as a guest, both as a founder and, after so many years, still the CEO of the company, and now, most people might not understand what that means, but being a technologist, founder, CEO myself, that's not always easy. I want to invite you and all your colleagues to come back and maybe start to and just think of this as just an introduction, and then we can then focus more on the basic building block, the technology building block, or maybe a live demo, or maybe some more case studies and so forth. But what I like to do is maybe use the remaining 5 minutes or so and talk about something else. you know, I don't know, my last company was started in 2003, and I got out just around the time you started this company. And I have a theory that great companies, great startup companies, always start at the downturn, not at the upturn, right? but what I'm trying to get at is that things have changed a lot in, you know, between '03 and '07, and the word that we use to describe this monitoring layer, you know, we used to call it SpyNet, access layer, and most recently people tend to call it the visibility layer, right? And of course, part of that is just marketing, but at the same time, to be fair, I think a big part of it reflects the sophistication of a customer, their acceptance that it is important to have a separate and standalone layer, right? Not just for data, but for how data are you know, the sort of integrity of the data. Now, you are right there. I mean, your box is
Absolutely.
wide visibility to the network. That's what your logo is all about. So tell us a minute. What do you think this word means, visibility layer, and how close do you think you are to that utopia?
So I think that basically all next generation IT operations management is really starting to pivot a bit and look at the world as a data problem. You know, and big data is an overused buzzword, but we see a lot of emphasis on where does your data come from. Now, if you're Splunk, data comes from log files, and they call it machine data, but ultimately machine data is anything that looks like a log file. And there are a lot of other machine data tools to mine that. If you're an APM tool like New Relic or AppDynamics, your data comes from instrumenting code. And if you're ExtraHop or something that's looking at wire data, your data comes from the wire, which I think is what you're calling the visibility layer. But to me, there are these fundamental sources of data. You know, I can get data by instrumenting a machine, or receiving log files. I can get data by instrumenting code, and I can get data by observing the wire. I think all of these approaches are very valuable. Wire data and machine data are probably the two deepest, richest, most vast, voluminous sources of data with the most use cases. And there's a fundamental difference, because machine data really relies on self-reporting. You only know about a problem if something logs that there's a problem. You only know that something is slow if somebody logs that it's slow. And as somebody who used to build infrastructure devices, I'll tell you that that sort of self-reporting is especially difficult when the health of the system is bad. Now, wire data, or the visibility layer that you're talking about, is inherently observational. You know about a problem because you can observe a failure on the wire. You know something's slow because you can time it and see that it's slow. And I think this marriage of self-reporting and observation is extremely important. And I don't think it makes sense to have one without the other. I often use a doctor-patient analogy when I talk to non-technical people, and I say that a doctor can interview a patient, can ask about his or her symptoms. Does it hurt when I do this? And the doctor can get really good information that way, and that's self-reporting. But sometimes the patient doesn't know. Sometimes the patient lies. And sometimes the patient's in no position to tell you anything. So it's very clear that there are limitations to that sort of self-reporting. I always tell people
sometimes the customer get used to it. They don't know any better.
I don't believe that. I think that I think in the enterprise IT environment, fundamentally there are all the things that you can log, and then there's everything else. And we're seeing a lot of traction in the marketplace, particularly here at ExtraHop, but I think in the broader market as well, in terms of adoption for this type of observational wire data analysis, because it's so powerful, because it's definitive, it's real time, it's truth, and there are so many applications for that level of visibility and truth.
Mm-hmm. That's why I've always, and you just said it earlier, been pontificating about looking at everything in the network. You can always ignore stuff, but if you're not looking at it, you don't see it all, then it's already obfuscated for you, so you can't get a solution. Now, and we're going to see more of that as we move towards the SDN construct, because SDN hides all the lower layers. it tries to control everything at layer 4 or above. And the way it's set up, again, there's so many different flavors right now.
Absolutely, and I think getting easier. Actually, I think the ability to access, that visibility layer is getting easier. There's a whole industry around aggregation taps.
Right.
Rumor has it that with the new Nexus switches, right, the 6000s and the 5600s, Cisco has vastly improved their spanning capabilities. I know Tim hates spanning, but it is a low-budget way of accessing some of that visibility layer. And even within virtualization, it was historically the case that virtual networking lagged behind physical networking, and it still does, but it's getting easier. With vSphere 5.1 and better, you can actually create an ER span on the vSwitch. I love that. With Open vSwitch, you can create an ER span on the vSwitch. So that visibility layer is becoming more accessible to a broader audience.
And it's being recognized as a dynamic must-have technology. And you really, in today's security world, you really can't afford not to have a good visibility of your network, because you can hide stuff, and of course, switches and routers can be hacked. Even Cisco just did something at Black Hat about that. So, you don't want something that could be changed and obfuscate your view more. I am definitely an advocate of taps, but SPAN has its capabilities. But from a security perspective, I won't use anything but taps, because I want to see every bit, byte, nibble, packet, everything.
And I completely agree, and that's why we keep building faster, more scalable appliances to try to to keep up with that volume of traffic.
Well, let me suggest that we close the show, because I think half an hour is sort of the sweet spot. Too much more than that, our audience tend to push it on the weekend. You can just look at the statistics. They would just say, well, I don't have time right now, let me do it on the weekend, but then they don't do it for obvious reason. I think what I really, again, repeating myself, I really want to think of today's interview, today's conversation with Jesse as sort of just the first shot across the bow, right? Bringing someone who is the kind of the thought leader in the monitoring visibility space, and I'm hoping that we would do more. I'm hoping that we can bring you back or bring your colleagues back, and I think that we need to do what we need to do to showcase your product, but at the same time, our community is about education. It's really about bringing knowledge to the viewer, and what we find that has worked really well for companies is actually to sort of create a parallel track where, in addition to talking about product, we talk about the technology, the basic technology, and try to educate, bring education to our audience. So I say this as an invitation to you, Jesse, and hopefully we see you again and your colleagues. And I said we have done so many different kinds of show, LMTV show. We've done an interview, which is what we do today. We have done case studies, live demo. We have done another thing called Shockfest.tv, which is pure technical. That's vendor neutral. So I hope you enjoyed today. I hope it does what you wanted to do. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, Denny. We would love to come back. And two other offers I'd like to make to anybody watching. First, if you come to Interop, please visit our booth. We'll be there at the end of April. And second, I mentioned it earlier, but on our website, if you follow the button to the Discovery Edition, that is a free virtual appliance. As I said, it's got some simplified capabilities. It doesn't have all of the bells and whistles of our enterprise product, but it's a very powerful virtual appliance for people to play around with and get exposed to our technology in a small-scale environment. So I'd invite anybody to do that. If you have any questions or product feedback, we're always looking to hear that feedback and improve our offering.
Excellent. And by the way, Interop is one of our sponsors. So as we get closer to the show, we're probably going to do a special edition of the LMTV where we showcase the Interop. We might, just thinking out loud, I haven't really consulted Tim with this, we might go ahead and do one where we invite all our sponsors who also happen to be exhibits of Interop, and just kind of give them a 10-minute spiel on what to expect, and what do you think, Tim?
I think it'd be a great idea to have a couple of shows, because we couldn't get everybody in 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
have everybody come in and talk about what they're going to be doing there. And
Yeah.
before we close it, Jesse, it's been great talking to you. We're going to eventually one day, Stumpy and I are going to get to meet you face to face. It's been, I've been kind of tied down here.
We're at the other ends of the country, Tim. It's tough.
Well, yeah, and I haven't been able to travel very much, but I'm getting back to where I'm able to move around a little more, and so I look forward to someday. And if you ever come to Atlanta, we got to get together and tech geek talk, because So I tell people that Love My Tool is a high-tech pornography site because only geeks would love it, and techie geeks would love it. So, but it's been great talking to you, knowing you, and we need to do it more often.
Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to close the show. Thanks again, Jesse.
Thank you for having me, Denny. Thanks,
and
Tim.
Hope to see you again. Thanks, Tim.
Be good, gang.
Okay, with that, bye-bye, and see you next week.